Previously, I looked at BAND-MAID's latest album, Conquer, so now I wanted to go all the way back to the beginning and see where the band started. Here I'll be going through the first 3 albums, or mini-albums as they are officially called, since they have roughly half the songs of a normal length album. The reason I wanted to do all 3 at once is that, with all 3 of the albums, they equal about a full album and a half, about 27 or so songs, so it shouldn't be too daunting to look at all 3 at once. Once again, I won't be going over lyrics and just be focusing strictly on the music aspect of these songs. The first of these albums is their debut mini-album, Made in Japan, and first off, I love the pun as the name of the album. Great start for me. It was initially released on January 8th, 2014, and did not chart, but was later released on February 14th, 2018, alongside their second full album, World Domination. The re-release added 2 extra songs, I Told Yonetsu no Matador, or Love Passion Matador in English, as well as Summer Drive. This re-release charted, reaching number 26 on the Japan Oricon Weekly Albums chart. As for information about the production history of this album, I couldn't find much information about that or why the album got re-released in 2018. The only information I could find really is that they didn't write any of the songs in this album, with the music being written by Kentaro Akutsu and Masahiko Fukui. Akutsu no longer helped with BAND-MAID, but did come back to help with one song recently, Smile, while Fukui is still with the band as of this recording. Both men wrote the music and helped arrange it, with the band members only helping with the arrangement process, which is why this album sounds very different from what they've been producing lately. Speaking of the sound of the album, this album honestly isn't too memorable to me in terms of how it sounds. All of the songs on here sound pretty much identical to one another, to the point where I can't tell any of them apart, aside from the 6-track Big Dad and the extra songs on the re-release. Yes, some of the songs do have unique things in them that make them distinguishable from one another, but no matter how much I listen to this album, nothing sticks out. I do enjoy the sound of this album, but nothing is memorable enough to keep them in my mind aside from the 3 songs I mentioned earlier. Each song has this sort of pop sound to it with a hint of rock that they start developing over the years up to where they are at this moment. Due to this, when I hear a song from this album, I know immediately where it's from, since no other song from them sounds like this, but I can never tell which song it is. Since each song isn't different enough from one another, I'm just gonna go over 4 songs from this album. The opening song, the 6-track Big Dad, and the 2 songs that were available with the re-release. The first song is the debut song off of the album, Be Okay. It starts off with some feedback from the guitars and strikes to the drums until the drums fully kick in alongside the guitars. The sound is very solid and really nice to listen to, but sadly, this is kinda how it stays for the majority of the song. It's just the same riffs during the same parts over and over again. Nothing is different between the separate verses nor during the separate choruses. There is a slide, I believe, right before Psyche comes in that I love. Speaking of Psyche, her voice sounds so different during these earlier albums compared to the later albums that I wouldn't be surprised if people thought it was a different person entirely. I do, however, really like how her voice sounds throughout this whole album. It sort of just fits what the band is singing, and that's honestly the best way I can put it. Miku, on the other hand, sounds pretty much the same and once again does a fantastic job in the backup vocals department, shining very early on when she sings Don't Give Up during the song. I've said this before and I'll continue to say it, Miku is such a good backup vocalist, to the point where I love to sing along with her rather than sing along with Psyche. There's this odd thing that happens when they get close to the chorus. Normally they would build up before exploding into the chorus, to give the chorus this extra oomph, making it more memorable, having this high wave of energy. But here, the build-up happens, but then the build-up just stops before the chorus, then kind of lazily enters into it. The chorus is still memorable, don't get me wrong, but they always start ramping it up and I get excited, but then I'm disappointed when it just continues on without a chorus. It's very weird and I don't understand why it happens like this. The only part I really get excited for is when the instrumentals drop and Psyche is singing with minimal play from the drums and the guitars, and like always, it's insanely beautiful. Her voice is just so good here that I can't help but get a huge smile on my face when this part comes on. The track closes out with them blasting away with hellos coming in to round off the sound. The instrumentals that actually finish the song are really good, but mostly sound exactly the same as the rest of the song, until Akane ramps it up, but it doesn't stay like that for too long. Saiki sounds us off with "I'm Gonna Be Okay." On to the next song, it's track number 6, Big Dad. And this one is a Miku only song, meaning Miku is the only vocalist on the track, no Saiki for this one. Miku doesn't have too many of these songs, where she's just singing by herself, on average about one an album, but I enjoy every solo song sung by her. Her voice is so different from Saiki's that Miku's songs have this different vibe to them. For the actual sound of the song, it's really good, one of the best ones on the whole album for sure. It starts with minimal play from Akane and Kanami, with Miku singing over the top of them before getting into the full sound of the song. Once Miku starts singing fully, you get into the sound you'll hear pretty much for the whole song. Like the whole album, it's nothing too complex, but it's a nice simple sound that's easy to listen to, and for a live audience, it's something you can easily clap along to or wave your hands to. The build up to the chorus is nice and smooth in this song, but once again, it kinda dies a little before actually getting into the chorus. There's a build up, but drops to just drums before exploding into the chorus. It's not as bad as the first track's build up, but still a little awkward for sure to me. The chorus, the more I listen to it, it honestly sounds no different from the verse. I think the only thing that's changed is the guitars are slightly more prominent during the chorus than on the verse. The other thing I guess is that the energy they're giving during the chorus is higher, which makes it sound different, I guess. It's hard to know, but they sound similar, but different at the same time. Coming out of the first chorus, this little 1 second moment of Akane on the drums is the perfect transition into the second verse. And this verse sounds exactly the same as the first one, however, I do hear a bit more Misa on the bass. I didn't mention this before, but the backup singer for this song and all of Miku's solo songs is Kanami. While she isn't too noticeable, she does help bring out the most of the vocals, blending in beautifully with Miku. After jamming out to the second verse, we get into the big trope of this album, which is the minimal instrumental play with a singer singing over it. It's a nice thing to have maybe once or twice on an album, but to do it on almost every single song, it gets repetitive and boring the more I hear it, to the point that I no longer want to hear it. Don't get me wrong though, Miku does a fantastic job during these sections, as does Saiki during her songs. But just give it to me less often so I can appreciate it more. We get a brief section where the full sound comes back in, led in by Misa on her bass, before immediately going back into the minimal stuff. Coming out of it though, before the ending sound, is probably the best sound on the track. Just everything hits you all at once, and it's capped off by an amazing sound from the guitars. I could honestly listen to this section for hours on end, and never get bored of it once. Nothing too amazing closes us out though, just the verse sound once again. A little disappointing after the amazing transition we just got, but oh well, not every song can be perfect. While this song isn't that, it's still really good and shows the potential of the Miku only songs. The next two songs are the two new songs on the album, although they aren't really new songs at all, since they were released in 2014, just a few months after the initial release of the album. These songs can be found under the Love, Passion, Matador single on Spotify. These two songs, Love, Passion, Matador and Summer Drive, are without a doubt the best songs on the album. Let's start off with the only single on this album, Love, Passion, Matador. Immediately, I love the sound the song has. It's a unique sound for the band, since no other song they've produced before or since has this kind of sound. It has a salsa type feel to it, and I can't help but just dance along to it as they jam out to the opening. The sound is pretty much the same the entire way through though, but I let it slide a little bit just because of how much fun I'm having listening to it. Kanami is 100% the star of this track, having a total of 3 different solos throughout, one after each chorus. The first and third ones start the same, but the first one gets cut off before it starts to get interesting. That's where the third one comes in, as it's the ending solo, so it can expand upon what the initial one couldn't do due to its limited time. Her middle solo is probably the best one though, since the emotion she's putting on the guitar is just so palpable, it's hard not to just skip back and continue listening to it without hearing the rest of the song. The only other thing to note about this track is that both Saiki and Miku once again hit it out of the park in the vocals department. I love when the pre-chorus starts and the instrumentals just die down again, letting both ladies shine and Miku getting the final lyrics before we kick into the chorus. It's a small part, but I love it. This whole track is phenomenal, a great addition to the album and an amazing penultimate track. The final track for this album is Summer Drive, with this one having Miku as the lead vocalist, but Saiki is on this track, doing Miku's role as the backup vocalist. So the two have just swapped roles, and I love this concept. I wish it was utilized more often. It opens us up with a nice drum section, a wonderful guitar slide, and a lot of O's coming from both of our vocalists. The first 30 seconds are some great high energy fun from everyone, and I can't get enough of it. Once the energy settles back down, they get into this nice rhythm, with every part being superb, my favorite being Misa of course. Although it's hard to hear, it's very enjoyable to hear her working so hard over there. Once the verse is over, we're back to that high energy fun from the beginning of the song, and this goes on for quite a while. I'm not complaining though, I'm having a lot of fun here. Saiki does a really good job at doing the random words from the backup vocals that Miku does so well. It's really fun to hear the roles reversed. Also, right before chorus number 2, Kanami does something with her guitar. I'm not sure what, but it's really good, I can tell you that much. It lasts for about 5 seconds, and sure, it might be short, but it's amazing. And like I've said in the previous video, it's always the things that don't last long that are the ones that make the biggest impression. Jumping straight into the bridge, Saiki gets to be the lead vocalist here, and it's really fun to listen to her. Just how her voice blends beautifully with the energy of the song. Even when the instrumentals are dialing back, there's still this high level of energy that's been present throughout the entire song. During this as well, there's some strange noise going on. I don't even know what it is or where it's coming from, but it sounds really nice and epic, so I'll take it. This leads us right into Kanami's solo, which is always great. Never ever going to complain about one of her solos. They're all fantastic. The song ends with that high energy I've been mentioning throughout this entire portion, and that brings us to a close on the first album from BAND-MAID. While nothing too memorable overall, to me at least, there's a hint of what this band's capable of, but not something I go back to all the time since most of the songs sound the same to me. New Beginning is the second mini-album released on November 18th, 2015. This album has one less song than the re-released version of Made in Japan, but all of the songs on here are so good that one of these songs alone just puts the entire first mini-album to shame. Every song in here has a very hard sound to it, nothing that sounds too much like a pop song and nothing that sounds like a ballad. I was actually able to find some information about the album. Not too much, but it's still better than nothing. During an interview with Femme Metal Webzine, they mentioned that after they released the opening track Thrill, they got a clear vision for the direction they wanted the music to head towards, and personally, it was the correct direction, going for the more hard sound, making the track stand out more. They do eventually go on to make ballads, and one of the ballads is my favorite song from them, but if that was all they did, I more than likely wouldn't be a very big fan of them. Akane also mentions that she uses a double bass drum for this album. They also reinforce the idea of this harder sound during their talk to JaME-World, saying this album is a new step, hence the name of the album. I do also like how they talked about wanting to continue doing the harder stuff, despite the fact that they still aren't making any of the music themselves. I'm sure they have more to say about it, but they still aren't credited for anything other than the arranging process, just like on Made in Japan. Spotify does say that Miku helped write the lyrics to Thrill, but I couldn't find anything else backing this claim up, so take that for what you want. I should also note that this is their final album under the label Gump Records, as they would move to Nippon Crown with the next one, and that's the label they've been with all the way up to today with Conqueror. Another thing is the production of this album. It wasn't just done by the same two guys like the previous album. Instead, there are a total of 5 people who worked on the lyrics, while 7 people worked on the actual music itself. We have Kentaro Kutsu returning to work on the first and last track. I don't recognize any other name, but I'll put them up on screen real quick instead of just listing them off, because that would take forever to do. It's really nice to see that more people were willing to work with them on this album, giving them a lot to work with and trying to figure out their exact style. The opening track for this album is Thrill, which, as of today, is their most watched music video on their YouTube channel, eclipsing 12.7 million views as the time of this writing, and my favorite track off of this album. Thrill was actually released alongside Love Passion Matador and Summer Drive on the Love Passion Matador single in early 2014, but I'm guessing the band liked it so much, they decided that this should be the opening track to this album, and I honestly think that this was a great decision, as this is the perfect song to represent the shift in tone that they were looking for at the time. The track begins with them not actually playing the opening part, but rather it's just played above them as they wait for Miku to say before just blasting into it. The opening sound is very solid. I love how easily all 3 members just blend perfectly together, and I say 3 because, according to the video, Miku isn't playing at all, which I guess isn't too surprising since at the moment in time at which this was recorded, she's still a beginner when it comes to the guitar. One Psyche says, the noise drops and becomes pretty light before picking right back up when the vocals come in full. This is backwards from how it would normally go. The instruments would be in full blast in between the vocals, but once they come in, the noise would drop back down to give more emphasis on the vocals. I do really love this, not only mixing up a formula they would establish later on, but everything sounds so solid throughout the whole track, not to mention that the vocals coming from Psyche and Miku are really good as well. Miku does a great job at the haze you hear throughout the chorus. Always love hearing her do stuff like that, and it's a great thing to do when they're playing the song live. Speaking of Miku, once the second verse starts, she gets her own little section here. It's not too long, but switching up the roles throughout the song is a nice way to keep us listeners engaged. Saiki once again does a great job at doing Miku's role of being the backup vocalist again. It's very brief, just like Miku's part, but it's really good to hear. I didn't mention this during the first verse, but the way Kanami plays the guitar during the verses sounds very disconnected, staccato-like from what I can tell. Even during the chorus, she plays alongside the drums. I know that's a weird thing to probably say, but the way it sounds is very pleasant on my ears, so that's why I'm pointing it out. Now for the fun part of every song, the solo section. This one starts off with Misa doing a little solo. It doesn't sound like anything special, just a simple solo to set it up for Kanami, although I'm sure the solo isn't easy to play by any means, it just looks easy. The solo ends with a wonderful and beautiful slide, which leads into Kanami just immediately going off by starting her solo by tapping. Two of my favorite things to hear from a guitar are done back to back here. The rest of the solo is just an awesome sound I've come to expect from Kanami, and it's so hard to describe all of her solos since they're all so wonderful that I just want everyone to hear them for themselves rather than me giving a poor attempt at trying to describe them. The rest of the band does a great job at backing her up during this as well. Once this is over, it's back to the same thing we've been hearing throughout the whole song, but we get to the very end where Kanami ends the song with a slide. Track number 2 off of this album is Freezer, and my god did this track open up hot and hard. The opening 17 seconds is easily some of the best sound the band has ever put out. It's so catchy, so fun to listen to, and is undeniably hard as fuck rock and roll. Hearing Misa enter the fray with her bass line, all leading up to Akane blasting her way in with her drums, and the three of them just start doing what they are known to do, playing the shit out of their instruments. There's also this fascinating sound that Kanami makes a few times in this riff. It's so mesmerizing. Even then, when Saiki starts to sing, Kanami, alongside with Misa and Akane, just trade beats back and forth for a little bit, and again, it's so much fun to just sit back and listen. All of this happens within the first 30 seconds of the song, and I'm already fully hooked in. I love just listening to the vocals during the chorus. I don't understand a thing they're saying aside from the English words, but just how they sing along with the backing sound just captivates me that I can't help but attempt to sing along. The sound they give before entering the second verse is just wonderful to hear. It mixes things up from before, cause they could have just kept doing the same verse sound and coming in after trading was done, but no, they decided to do something entirely different, which I'm all for. You can see the foundation for the current vision of music making starting to build all the way back here. Instead of continuing to do the same thing, which would make the song get repetitive and boring, they decide to spice things up, keep us on the edge of our seats, anticipating whatever they're going to do next. The second verse changes things up quite a bit with a pause in the sound for a brief moment, which is something that I always love to hear, along with Kanami playing a completely different part apart from what she was playing in the first verse. The solo part for this track, oh my god, this is one of the best solos KONAMI has ever put out there. The raw power she's displaying, plus all the moving parts going throughout it. I didn't think this track could get any better, but this solo alone puts this track up there as one of the best the band has ever put out, and I honestly don't say that lightly, as I love a lot of their music. They could have honestly just released these first two tracks as the entire album, and I would still say that you got your money's worth. No doubt in my mind. But they did decide to add in more tracks, just to be nice to us all. There's a theme going on thus far with this album, and it's that every track, though it's only been 2, the openings have been straight up amazing, and this continues with the next track, Real Existence. The blasting of the drums that Akane gives us, plus the riffs that KONAMI is giving us from the guitar, along with a nice bass line, just gives us another banger of an opening. Oh, but KONAMI is far from done yet, because as soon as Saiki chimes in, we just hear this wailing of a note from the lead guitarist. And it's held for what seems like an eternity, to the point where it kinda overpowers everything else. But hey, I'm not gonna complain one bit, she's a fucking genius. Once that's over, they fall into this nice sound. Nothing too special, but it's not bad by any means. Past this point, not much else is too notable. Just KONAMI doing a nice little riff to enter us into verse 2. There's a nice brief pause in the sound before we get some as ohs and ahs as background noise, though neither Saiki or Miku are doing this, live anyway. More than likely it was recorded separately and then put over all the music once it was finalized. Still, I really love how it blends in beautifully with the rest of the track. That's not something easy to do at all. We get a very nice slide from KONAMI before we get into a nice instrumental part. Nothing too amazing, but this leads into the solo, and KONAMI just goes off here. Not to mention that Misa also goes down the scale a few times during the solo section. The people writing all these songs just wanted the band to have the best instrumental sections, it seems, because so far, each one has been top notch. After this, just the chorus hits again, and we get some nice awesome noise from the band to close out the track. And another theme's forming here, which is the fact that every song has had a great ending. It's just so much fun to listen to, and it's really easy on the ears, which in turn makes me want to continue listening to it over and over again. I'm going to go ahead and lump the next 3 songs into a single section, since I don't want this to take too long, but also, while 2 of the next 3 songs are great, I just want to point out little sections in them rather than give a full analysis on them. The 4th track, Price of Pride, while it's not a terrible song by any means, when comparing it to the album as a whole, but this track still has an amazing thing I love about it. The superstar of this track is 100% Akane, as she carries this entire track, making it so much better than it would otherwise be. The guitar sections are really nice as well, alongside the fact that I can hear Misa pretty much throughout the entire track, which I always love hearing her play. The last thing is that the different things that they do with the vocals here are nice, and something that they don't do with any other song. The opening sounds of Arcadia Girl, the 5th track, are really nice. Sounds almost like something you would hear at the beginning of a spy flick, and the vocals that followed up really match the tone. It keeps this up throughout pretty much the entire track, which makes it very easy to listen to. The other great part about this is that Kanami gets 2 solos, and each one is amazing, just like you'd expect from her at this point. The first one is just something else, matching the tone of the song perfectly, and it's very brief, getting us back into the main portion of the song very quickly. The second solo basically just picks up right where the first one left off, essentially making this one big solo broken up into 2 individual sections. This is probably the better of the 2 solos since Psyche is yelling over the top of it, giving it that extra emotional support, although Kanami needs no help in that department for sure. Sixth track, Don't Apply the Brake, is the 4th best track off of the album in my opinion, and honestly it's solely because of the vocals that happen during the chorus. I don't know what it is, but the singing during the chorus is so catchy that I just sing along to it all the time, and I have so much fun doing it. The sound is also very solid throughout the whole song, especially during the opening bit, like always with this album. The solo is great like in every song they've ever done, but overall, the sound of the track is really the reason this stands out. The sound just carries the track the entire way. It's super solid, nothing too insane, but it's a nice catchy tone that I love hearing every time I decide to listen to this track. The next track, Beauty and the Beast, is a Miku-led song, but it's not a Miku-only song, as Psyche is on this track as the backup singer, much like in Summer Drive. I bring this up because I thought it was a Miku-only song, until I listened to it again for this review, and was honestly surprised to hear Psyche on it. I know I saw a live version of this when Psyche was doing backup vocals, but I thought that was just something they would do for the live crowd, since you'd want to mix things up every now and then when performing a song live. Also, I'm not sure, but I don't think Miku's playing her guitar on this track, since in that same live version, she has no guitar on her. It sounds really nice even without her, but I'm sure she could have added something to the track. Anyway, the track opens up with some nice drums from Akane, Kanami giving us an excellent riff, and Misa opens up by just holding on to a single note for about 5 seconds or so. I love how they do the next part 5 times, twice doing a little pause in it, then just do it 3 times in a row, which leads to Miku entering with her vocals. After she enters, just a good, well-rounded sound with the beauty of the vocals giving the sound a really memorable feel to it, because I would describe Miku as the softer of the 2 vocalists. She usually shines on the softer songs or the ballads, so to see her having the lead on a song that just jams out makes this song really stand out to me. The ramp up to the chorus is really nice and quick, which leads to us just jamming out to Miku singing. The energy given out by the whole band during the section gets me jumping up and down, smiling and just singing along to Miku as best as I can. I think the reason I just start rocking out is due to Akane on the drums. She just sets the whole tone for the chorus, and it's her part that I'm jamming out to the most. But I don't discount Misa and Kanami either, since they pull their own weight just as much. But Akane just shines beautifully during this part. I'm going to jump over verse 2 and chorus 2, since they're pretty much the same as the previous ones, with maybe something different here and there, but I don't care at all, since the instrumental section is right after that. I honestly don't think I can describe this instrumental section at all. Even if I do, I won't do it any justice whatsoever. It's just one of those things where you have to listen to it for yourself. All I'll say is that Akane owns it along with Kanami. This is pure, hard as fuck rock. Without a doubt, the hardest they've gone on this album, and one of the hardest solos they've ever done, period. This is as close as they get to metal in my opinion, and I love every second of it. I'm not going to count their instrumental only tracks in that statement since I think they have more freedom during those, since they don't have to write vocals around the song. They can just go off and do whatever they want on those tracks. Seriously though, go and listen to this whole instrumental section. You will love it, I guarantee it. The sound just dies as Miku sings the opening lines to the chorus again, before they're right back into that chaotic sound that this track keeps giving us. The more I listen to this specific track, the more I fall in love with it, and it's slowly creeping up as one of my favorites for them. It's for sure at least number 2 on this album, right behind Thrill, but this track slaps so hard in so many different ways that I can't help but always want to hear the song from them. I'm going to clump the next 2 songs into one big section like I did earlier with those 3 songs. Mostly since I just want to go over specific parts from them, and the final track is so deep that I could spend 10 to 15 minutes on it alone and probably still not get to everything. Track 8 is the first English song that they ever put out, Don't Let Me Down, and I expressed my opinion briefly about the song during my Conqueror review. I mentioned that I'm not a huge fan of the lyrics, and I don't think that'll ever change. I do enjoy them in the sense that they're just so blunt that I can't help but be surprised every time I hear them. But that's enough about the lyrics. I'm here solely to talk about the music, and this song sounds fine. It's got a nice feel to it, just like the rest of the album. The sound during the first verse is really nice, with the star being Akane and her drums. Kanami is also doing some good stuff with her instrument, as well as Misa, although Misa can be heard very faintly. The chorus is just nice and solid, everything blending in smoothly, not one part really standing out from each other. The introduction into the second verse though is so good and probably my favorite part of the entire track. It's just so sudden, and as soon as you notice it, it's gone, just like that. Other than those places, the rest of the song is just the chorus and the verse sound, with an okay interlude before going into the final chorus. Overall, it's okay, but nothing too special. The final song for this album is Shake That, and the beginning is really good. I enjoy how the instruments are going down a scale every so often. I love me a good scale. The solo is fucking fantastic, with Misa opening it up and Kanami just has her way with the guitar like in every solo she gets. But honestly, the best part of this track is the ending bit. So much happens during it that I can't go over every single thing. From the vocals pausing every so often, to Miku doing her own vocal part, and the backup yells are just great, which leads into the chorus sound, and finally the finishing bit, which is just the opening bit again. This is honestly a really good track to end on. It's not too crazy of a song, and it's one that leaves you wanting just a bit more from them. And don't you worry, my friends. We'll be getting a lot more from them. Just you wait. The final album we'll be looking at is BAND-MAID. Honestly, a great name since the band is starting to find their form, the music is becoming more of what they want it to be, and the music is completely different from what it was made in Japan. This album was released on May 18th, 2016. This is the first album they've released under the Nippon Crown label and under the sub-label Crown Stone, where they would stay for this album and the next 2 albums. Other than that, I wasn't able to find any other information on the making of this album, aside from the CD jackets telling me exactly who wrote the lyrics and who arranged the music for each song. Other than that, literally nothing else, which is a shame since I find this album to be a huge deal for them, since this was their first one to be released outside of Japan, making this a huge turning point for the band. I also want to preface by saying that this is probably the hardest album I've covered of theirs so far, not because it's bad, not at all. Rather, the songs are just really good, but I can't put my finger on why that is. A lot of it is probably just how it sounds initially, since there aren't a lot of differences between each song. And what I mean by that is each song keeps the same sound throughout. Each song individually does sound different, but in each song, the sound is pretty much the same throughout, is what I'm trying to get at here. I also just enjoy the vocals of every sound so much that I just focus on those rather than trying to listen to the music. Anyway, enough with that, and let's actually talk about some really awesome tracks. The first track is The Non-Fiction Days, and I love how this track opens up with a nice little riff from Kanami before having everyone blast their way into the track. There's just this nice rock sound to the opening, and throughout the whole track, it's so easy just to get lost in it. Akane is just hypnotic on the drums, and you'll probably be hearing me praise Akane a lot on this album, since she's the one that stands out on every track. She's out of this world. The vocals are also really well from both of our vocalists. They do a really nice job of not overpowering the instruments and blending in beautifully, allowing us to enjoy both simultaneously. The chorus has this nice build-up with Akane speeding up her tempo ever so slightly, and the vocals just hit me in a nice way, with Miku doing some nice ahs in the background, as everyone continues to just jam out of their minds. There's this brief spot in the chorus where they slow down for a little bit, but then get right back into it for the last bit before the vocals die off and we get a chance to listen to the amazing sound this track has to offer to us. Entering verse 2, they go for the minimal stuff with Saiki being the focal point for a brief moment, where Kanami literally slides her way back into the fray with the rest of the band, jamming out into the chorus. Going through the chorus again, we go into the minimal stuff once again and blast our way into the instrumental / solo section of the track. And it's so fucking awesome, with it giving us a nice hard rock sound and Kanami giving us an awesome solo like she always does. After that, it's just the same sound we've been hearing the entire time, and it's a blast to listen to. A wonderful track to open up an album, getting me hyped up for the rest of the album. Look at Me is the second track off the album, and it starts off really strong with a really nice opening. It's not too hard of a sound, but it's not soft either. It strikes a nice balance between the two. Within the first 5 seconds, Kanami does something that I honestly cannot describe, but it's so awesome that I'm surprised I've listened to the whole song, since I constantly go back and listen to that 5-second stretch every single time. Other than that, it's got a really solid sound overall with not much changing throughout it. I can hear Misa the entire time, which I'm always a fan of. I love hearing her. The other part I really love is the entrance Kanami solo. In most songs, there's a build-up of sorts, Either she starts off slower before really getting into it, or all the instruments die down, doing something themselves before she comes blasting in out of nowhere. This time around though, she just blasts right into it, barely giving us the time to react after Psyche's done singing her bit. It's so startling because I'm not expecting it at all, but it's also refreshing to hear something different, even if it's something that I might not be comfortable with. The solo is really nice, starting off really strong and really fast, but then slowing back down, almost like she's become sad toward the end of it and has lost the energy she once had. The ending sounds very sad and very emotional, and it's amazing that I can feel that without any words being spoken at all. The track ends with a solid sound that's been going on throughout the whole track, leaving us on a good note for the next one coming up. Next on the track list is Order, with Psyche opening us up with some beautiful solo lyrics with only one note being played by everyone before they just get right into it, and holy hell does this track go super hard. The sound is so mesmerizing that it's honestly hard to describe how it sounds. So I'll just play the opening bit for you so you can understand just how nice this sounds. It kind of sounds like a harder version of Look at Me's opening. During all that chaos, Kanami just goes out of this world with her instrument, and it's so good. We're only 15 seconds into the track, but I could honestly listen to this 15 seconds over and over and over and over again and never get bored of it. That's how good it is. The sound continues even when both Psyche and Miku join in with their wonderful voices, and Miku does a fantastic job at the backup vocal department with ohs and ahs sprinkled in throughout. The chorus is just amazing with a nice short build up to it, and that guitar sound that Kanami was doing earlier is back, and she does it throughout the entire chorus, which is honestly a bit distracting, I'm not gonna lie, but I just want to continue listening to her rather than listen to whatever else is going on. The entire chorus is really good though when listening to every part, since they all blend in together beautifully, alongside the vocals. The ending to the chorus is really nice as well, with Psyche ending it with some English words, and then we're straight back into the opening sound. Really good stuff here. Verse 2 opens up so well with Miku getting her own lyrical section, which I'm a fan of. But to make it even better, Misa gets not a single slide, but a double, possibly a triple, slide when Miku enters into her second part of her lyrical verse. I didn't think this track could get any better, but now I'm just in love with it. Once that awesomeness is over, it gets back into the build-up stage of the song in order for us to enter chorus number 2. It's the same sound as the first chorus, but the lyrics are switched up with Psyche giving different English lines at the end, and I really love the English lines here, they're really good. But this leads us into the solo section, and this time around, we start with a Misa solo, and it's lovely. Honestly wish she got more solos, just to show off how amazing she is at the bass. It's not too long of a solo, but it's a nice warm-up that leads into a solid instrumental section where everyone gets to show off their skill, before Kanami starts her solo by tapping, and it's wonderful. This song has everything I love in a BAND-MAID track. Miku singing on her own, a slide, a Misa solo, and a tapping solo, which makes this one of the best songs they've ever done by default, in my opinion. After all that amazingness that we witnessed with our ears, the track goes off with the chorus sound and ends with the beginning sound. Truly an awesome track after the first track set the bar so high. I'm going to briefly go over the next two tracks since I don't want to be here for the next 5 hours, and this video is already getting long enough as it is. Brand New Road's up next on the track list, and it's really enjoyable to hear the opening bits, where it sounds like they're going down a scale twice in the span of about 15 seconds. Combining that with Psyche's voice during the beginning portion is really nice, especially since this one part where her voice is just so magical. The chorus is really solid each time, nothing too exciting, nor is it boring, just hitting that sweet spot, even if it's not very complicated. And it's just joined with wonderful vocals that really make it stand out. The instrumental portion of the track is really good, starting with a very, very light Misa solo that's just hypnotic in how it sounds, before going all the way out with Kanami. A really magical moment here. The last 10 seconds of the song are fantastic, changing up the sound just as we're about to leave, making us crave more of that goodness they have to offer. Before jumping right into the next track, YURAGU, I want to very quickly mention that for the first time, the lyrics to the song were actually written by both Miku and Psyche, making this the first song, at least in track order, that any kind of production to the songs, be that lyrics, music, arrangement, was done by the band themselves. While I don't understand any of the lyrics, I don't speak Japanese, this was a huge moment for the band, I'm sure. Now with that out of the way, I love the opening drum line, plus the guitars that play for about the first 20 seconds or so. Very relaxing to listen to, and it isn't just blasting us right away. Also, some of the lines that they sing start the exact same way as some of the lines from Thrill. I'm sure this is 100% pure coincidence, but I thought I'd bring it up since it's something I noticed. The chorus is really nice with the instruments just playing away with the vocalists singing over them in a haphazard sort of way, as if they're trying to squeeze in what little they can, but the music is just too much for them. It's something different from the norm and I love it. This is a chorus that I'll surely remember for this unique style. At the beginning of verse 2, the instrumentals just sort of die as Kanami plays on her own in a really awesome way, just strumming one note over and over again, making the soothing sound that I could just listen to over and over again. Akane also does a great job at backing this up, not too overpowering, letting Kanami take the lead here. The track also follows suit with the last one, A nice Misa solo that builds up to Kanami just wailing on her guitar as we just listen to it in awe, amazed at what she can do. To make it even better, Miku sings very briefly over the top of it twice, which is just amazing. This track ends with the familiar sound that's been playing throughout the whole thing, but it kinda does ramp it up just a tad bit at the end. Nothing too crazy, but does add an extra oomph to it. I'm going to go ahead and clump the next two songs together as well, not because I don't have anything to say about them, that's not it at all. I honestly love both of the next two songs. It's just that I want to spend a good amount of time with the final track of this album, so in order to do that and not stretch this video out, I'm just going to cut the next two songs down a bit, since not too much happens in them in all honesty. So let's talk about the next track, Freedom. That name is a little fitting since, and I have no proof of this, just a random YouTube comment I saw somewhere. This track is the easiest song they have, giving them the freedom to just mess around during a live performance. And once again, the lyrics of this were written by Miku. Anyway, on to the actual sound of the track. It's a very subdued opening, not much is happening even when Psyche comes in. Even the ramp up to the chorus isn't that huge other than the slides right before it begins. It does, however, sound very impactful given how slower, softer the track feels in comparison to the rest of the album. My favorite part of the whole song, though, is Miku's verse, because she sings it in this way that just entrances me every time I hear her say, it just gets me every time, man. She sings it with a lot less energy in this studio version as opposed to the live version. In the live version, they just have a lot more energy in here. I also think that's why I love the song so much. It's due to the live versions I've heard over and over again. I hardly ever listen to the studio version. Not that there's anything wrong with it, just that the live versions give off this sort of energy that's just missing from the studio version. Miku's section is really fun to sing to and listen to, as is the solo section that Kanami gets, where she plays with this level of energy that I could just never match. It's so addictive to listen to her play over and over again, giving us these great solos and melodies throughout every single song. It feels too good at times to be real. There's a section where Psyche sings practically on her own, and it's just beautiful as always, with her voice just ringing out with very little getting in the way. The ending bit is really good as well. Even though it's just the chorus again, there's a nice amount of energy poured into it that makes it really catchy to listen to over and over again. Before Yesterday is really fun to listen to, with the opening being smooth as butter. Nothing too hard, but again, nothing too soft. It finds that happy medium the whole album has seemed to do thus far, and it's wonderful to hear. It does pick up as the track goes along, but it's nice to ease us listeners into it rather than just blasting us away. I do enjoy the ending of the verses as well as we get into the chorus. Just something about it clicks with me in a really good way. Also, the MV they put out for this, Psyche does a really cute thing here, pumping her arms out to each Economy's notes. Yeah, I just love it so much, and that's honestly probably the reason I love this section so much. The chorus is really beautiful to listen to, being able to hear everyone really well, not one person really standing out from the rest, including our two vocalists. Economy has a really nice part past verse 2, taking the spotlight during that bit, almost like a mini solo of sorts. She also has a pretty short solo, but it's still impactful, leaving us wanting more, but just not getting it. Not much else of note in this track though, but I do really enjoy it as a nice chill track, especially considering what's about to happen. The final song we'll be looking at today is Alone, and this one will always hold a special place in my heart, and I assume it holds a similar kind of place for the members of the band. For me, this was the very first song I'd ever heard from the band, so it's a nice way of remembering how I came to love this group. For the members of the band, this was the very first song that was 100% made by them and approved by the producers and the studio. Psyche and Miku wrote the lyrics, each member wrote their own musical parts, and they arranged it themselves. So this was a huge song for them in their history. The song proves that they can make great music on their own without the studio/producers making it for them. So, enough preamble, let's fucking do this. The opening riff from Kanami is so magical, and the fact she starts us off is truly special, since she's the driving force behind the songwriting and the arrangements for the band. Not too long after that, we get the vocalist coming in with an "oh" before the whole band roars their way into the track, as if they couldn't contain their inner animals anymore and wanted to join in with Kanami. The video for this brief moment is really awesome, with everyone doing some kind of motion when they all come in, with Psyche knocking over a mic stand, asserting her dominance over that useless thing. She doesn't need that damn thing. The sounds they're making are just great. Akane with her magic on the drums, Misa being that great solid foundation for this opening bit, and Miku rounding it out so wonderfully, plus she's also adding in with the vocals. It's a perfect way to open this final track. Once we're through all that, everyone fades away. Psyche being the sole focus of the next bit, with Miku helping her out in such an appealing way. Kanami is very soft on the guitar, just playing a few notes over and over again. Akane is always heard, but she's not doing too much to get in the way of Psyche and Miku, with Misa being absolutely amazing on the bass. Everything is just perfect, making this such an easy listen, which is good, since this is the sound for a good portion of the track. As the chorus looms ever closer, the sound does start to change with Misa, getting her time to shine with a few good riffs from her bass, with Kanami not really playing during the moments before the chorus, only really strumming a few notes every so often. But boy, does that all change when the chorus kicks in. I love that there's this ever so slight pause in Akane's drumming pattern during the lead up to the chorus, and her drumming becomes faster and faster before everyone decides to get in on the game, getting us into the chorus. While nothing too special is happening, just the sheer emotions and power that's coming from everyone more than makes up for this fact. Kanami during all this sounds like she's so far away from everyone, as if she's playing on her own planet during all this, whilst everyone just does what they normally do. I don't mean that she's playing out of her mind, but she literally sounds so far away. It's so weird, but I can't help but listen to her every time I come into this song. Psyche, on the other hand, is just phenomenal during this section, with myself hanging on to every word she's singing, while I can hear the emotions and pain coming out from whatever she's singing, even though I don't understand a damn word she's saying. And my God, that's the beauty of music and why I love it so much. The beginning portion of verse 2 involves everyone literally stopping their play just so Psyche and Akane can more or less do a duet for a tad moment, giving both of them time to show us what they're truly made of, as if we already didn't know this before this section. There's two parts to this. The part where they're by themselves, followed by the band doing a nice riff before letting those two finish up. But they don't really finish alone, as there's some kind of sound that persists throughout the second part, and I'm not sure what it is. It's either Kanami or Miku on their respective instrument, or it's just a noise added in post-production. After this is the same section as the previous verse, but I still love hearing our two vocalists light up the song with their astonishing voices, making this section one I always come back to, mostly due to the lyrics they're singing, since it's so much fun to sing along or to hear them sing them. After we get past chorus 2, we get into the best part of the track. The music fades away, leaving us with Akane doing some softer stuff compared to the rest of the track, with Misa getting her own solo, like a majority of the album here, as we get Psyche singing over the top of it with a filter on it to make her sound like she's inside of a radio, far away from the rest of us as we take in the solo from Psyche. As this is happening, something's starting to brew in the background as we get this really high-pitched noise from someone. Just as it's starting to go on for a bit too long, all of a sudden Psyche counts us down to the breathtaking solo that's about to come from Kanami. Her strumming power during the solo is remarkable as well, as her ability to convey such sad, heart-wrenching emotions from an instrument that makes sounds that we just have to interpret. It's easily one of her best solos, and one that I will cherish for as long as I'm able to hear this track. After that is the verse again, followed by them just blasting away for the last 30 seconds. I do enjoy the last bit before they go ahead and play their hearts out, with Psyche holding her second to last note, so that when she sings her final note, everyone can do what they did at the beginning of the track, coming in all at once, giving us this euphoric wave of sound. The sound is the same familiar one they've been doing throughout the whole song, but about halfway in, Akane starts doing what I'm dubbing as machine gun pedaling. Instead of describing it, I'll just let you listen to it. With that, we have reached the end of the journey this video has taken us on. It was really fun to listen to all of these songs and slowly hear the band get better and better with each album they release. Each song becoming better and better, the ladies themselves becoming better versions of themselves. And to think at this point in time when Brand New Maid was released, they hadn't even peaked yet. You're probably asking, where does the band go from here? Well, my friends, you'll just have to wait and see.